So I want to introduce you to a new car that we have. So this is a 2012 Corsa D 1.3 CDTi EcoFLEX. Now the EcoFLEX has, as you can tell from these seats, it has the SXI interior. It also has the SXI's ride height because it's lowered by 22mm for, not for handling or sports purposes, but actually for economy and reduced drag. So this is a higher torque version of the A13 series engine. So this is the A13 DTC. Generates 75 brake horsepower and 140 pound-foot of torque. Now, at the moment, I don't have the trip computer enabled, but I'll be doing that in a future video using Opcom. But I do have, as you can see, the GID, so the graphic info display, and I also have the UHP Bluetooth phone prep, along with the weird hot shoe that you used to get in Vauxhalls of this era. I had a Vectra C that had exactly the same setup. I think it takes the place of the rear cup holder. It certainly did in the Vectra C. It was there where the cup holders would be, so it actually took the place of the cup holders. Now, this example has on the clock 91,521 miles. One owner from new. And before I purchased it, there were a couple of checks that I made just by looking at the service book. So these engines have a sump capacity of, I think on this version, it's either 3.2 or 3.5 litres. I think it's 3.2 litres because it is the earlier version of the engine. Later versions actually had a larger sump, so on the Corsa E's they had an increased sump capacity. I don't think I've got the ratings on now. I think they're actually in the handbook, so let me just grab those out a moment. Yeah, there we go. A13 DTC, 3.2 litres. The later ones, I think they increased that capacity to 3.5 litres. Now, that, by any standards, is a tiny sump. Not much in there. I mean, for example, the G31 530D there has a sump capacity of 6.5 litres. Yeah, that is a 3 litre straight 6, and this is a 1.3 litre straight 4. But, you know, you could easily have a sump capacity on this of 4 litres, which would be much better in my view. But with this engine, what they were trying to do was to reduce the size of things, reduce weight, reduce capacities, reduce the size of internal components like the timing chain, all to reduce weight, really. So the one thing that I looked for was the service history. And I wanted to check that there had been oil changes at least every 10,000 miles, which is arguably a little bit high. I'm going to be doing changes on this every 4 months or every 4,000 miles, whatever comes first, probably every 4 months. But at least once a year and at least at 10,000 miles. Vauxhall at the time had a flex servicing scheme as part of the sort of servicing package that they offered. Now that meant this particular engine could go up to 20,000 miles between services on 3.5 litres of oil. Now that's beginning to show on certain examples. Certain examples are suffering from high oil consumption due to stuck oil control rings, which can be repaired if you take out the injectors and chuck in some automatic transmission fluid. Bit of an old school fix, but it does work. But it just goes to show that these long life oil consumption schedules were not good. They were not good. BMW suffered similar issues, which is certainly on mine, why I tend to do mine once every 6 months. Now, if we look at the history, 10,000 miles, 20, 30, 43, that was a little bit long. Not happy with that, but that's how it was. 53, 68, again, a little bit long. 77, that was okay. 83, 87, and the car was off the road for the year. So it was actually off the road for, I think, the entirety of 2024. So the next service was at 91,000-ish. Then I did an oil change as soon as I got it and went up to a higher weight oil, 5W40. And then I had a major repair conducted. So within the documentation I got with the car, I read that the timing chain had started to rattle at startup. Now, if you have a timing chain on one of these, which you will, because it's the 1.3, so you will have a timing chain, you want to ensure that it doesn't sound at startup like somebody shaking a cup of nails. Now, mine sounded like that, and it would very quickly, once the tensioner took up the slack, it would very quickly go away. But that is the sign that your chain is beginning to get a little bit past its best. So when I had the chain replaced with all proper Vauxhall parts, including all the Vauxhall part numbers, I had all of the parts left in the boot so that we could take a look at them. This is the tensioner. So as you can see, oil is fed into the tensioner, which pressurizes it. There's a little weep hole on the back, which is completely clear actually, which is good. So it shows that even though some of the oil changes were skimped a little bit, they haven't really sort of done too much damage to the engine. Oil consumption on this engine is also seems to be normal as well. It hasn't gone down since I had the work done. This is the guide that, if you look at the engine from the front, or rather from its side, this is the guide that would sit sort of there. So you've got this side, you have a guide with the tensioner pushing onto it. You have another guide on that side, and that's the guide from that side. Now these, when they go, they lose that bottom part, as you can see there. And what can happen is you can actually have the chain starting to rub away at the metal, which it looks like mine actually started to do there. Now that's the sound that you're probably hearing on startup, where it sounds like a bag of nails, is the chain impacting on this bit of metal. This, obviously because it was under tension, stayed in one place, but this is common. This isn't alarming, this is really common. The part that obviously clips onto the bottom there drops off, just falls in the sump, and when they complete the work, it comes out as part of the clean-up of the sump. But you can see there that that should be attached like so at both ends. So obviously because that was under tension, yeah, it'd be that way up I think. Because that was under tension with the chain, that wasn't going to go anywhere. It's also quite possible that it broke when they were removing it, because it certainly wasn't mentioned when I asked. But, you know, it is a possibility that that had slipped, that had started to wear away. In extreme cases, you can actually wear this away completely. And that's when you know that your chain is completely untensioned. The engine will also sound terrible, whereas mine, at warm sort of full operating temperature, you would get an ever so slight little tinkle sound, which you could only really sort of determine or hear if you know what you're looking for. So that may have been the sign that that was impacting on that one. This is the tensioned rail, and this one is actually in much better condition. So there isn't really any scoring on that. Any sort of alarming amounts of scoring. There is a little ridge in the middle, which is actually come to think of it, there is quite a lot of scoring on there. I thought that was the natural shape of the moulding, but no, that, if you look at that there, that's the chain wearing against the guide rail. Again, that's going to be perfectly normal because it's done nearly 100,000 miles. But it just goes to show that these chains, despite what anyone will say to you at the dealer, and in fact they said to me, are not sealed for life. These need to be replaced. This is the chain. Now, if I held this up against the chain that's in the car at the moment, this will probably be probably up to 0.5 centimetre longer than the chain that's in the car, and that's because this is just stretched. But very sort of standard cam chain, not particularly long, but then again it is a tiny little engine, so you're not going to have a huge cam chain like you would have on that, which will actually be a cam chain of several parts on the BMW. And the cam chain on the BMW is also mounted at the bulkhead end of the engine, which, yeah, we won't go into that. That's something modern build techniques that always annoys me. And that's it, really. The sprocket wasn't replaced, presumably because it didn't have really any wear on it. There were two sprockets. There's the cam sprocket and there's the sprocket down at the crank. Now, on these engines, they don't have a keyway for the sprockets. So on a lot of cars with cam belts and cam chains, the main sprocket on either end will have a little notch in it and a little key in either the crank or a little key in the cam that it goes onto, and that allows it to slot on and centre it. On these engines, they use extreme amounts of torque to do up the relevant bolts. Also, a little, I think it's a Fiat thing actually, but the main crank bolt on these is a reverse thread. So when you undo it, you actually undo it that way and tighten it that way. And when you tighten it up to a ridiculously high torque figure. I don't have the values to hand, but yeah, it is very high. It was a job I was considering doing myself, but I'll be honest with you, as you can see, we're in sort of coming into winter. Everything's wet. I don't fancy scrabbling about on the floor trying to get a job done. So why have I got this car? Well, the Almera had an annoying front suspension knock that I could not trace. I'd replaced the entire suspension setup on it, including the lower arms. I couldn't trace the knock. The final thing I was thinking of replacing was the steering rack, but I got to a point where I thought, my eldest son is going to be learning to drive next year. He turns 17 April of next year. This one is cheaper to insure than the Almera. It should return greater economy, although that isn't really playing out at the moment. It's returning about the same as the Almera, maybe slightly better, but not the 65 miles to the gallon the manufacturer claims. But then again, you can't really trust those figures. And yeah, I just fancied a change as well. So I've always liked Vauxhalls. This is a GM era Vauxhall, so it just seemed sort of fitting to have one sort of back on the fleet. Anyway, that's enough of that. Oh yeah, very quickly, transmission on this one is the F17 5-speed, so it looks externally like an F23. but it's slightly lower rated internally, so there's enough, it's strong enough to obviously sort of suit this particular engine, but it's not the M32 6-speed, which are known to have reliability problems. The 95 brake horsepower version of this engine does have the M32 6-speed, and there are additional checks that you need to perform when you're taking it for a test drive. With these ones, as long as it changes smoothly and doesn't make any undue noise, these are a good sturdy box. The F23's got a great reputation. I think the smaller F17s that this one has also have that sort of reputation by association. They're not a bad box at all. What else can I think of that I checked? Clutch slave cylinder is on the inside. If they go, you can actually tell very quickly, because there will be the clutch pedal will feel very greasy, and that's a sign that the clutch slave cylinder is on its way out and will need to be replaced. It's another good little bargaining tactic. And then there's obviously all the standard stuff about checking shut panel, shut lines, all of that sort of panel gaps, etc. Another little gotcha on these is on the rear. Rear arch, where the rear arch meets the bumper, you want to make sure that there's no rust beginning. Because of the way the bumper's mounted, over the years it can rub the paint away, and it can cause rust problems. So that's just something to watch out for. The rest of it is really just sort of standard used car stuff. There a service history? Is the coolant being changed on a semi-regular basis, like every 5 years or so? Does it start? Does it run? Does it smoke on the overrun? All of that sort of stuff, really. Anyway, we'll be seeing a bit more of this in the future, because I will be doing a how-to service video on it, and a few little sort of cosmetic upgrades on the interior, and a couple of other little bits and pieces, and also hopefully enabling both cruise control, which will require a new stalk, and the trip computer, which will also require a stalk on that side. Anyway, thanks for watching.